A metaphor that I think about when it comes to sexual intimacy is that sexual intimacy is the language that you learn to speak. And if you think about the idea of a language, as part of it, there's the opportunity for poetry, for lyrics, and everyday conversation. If sexual intimacy is a language, then there are basic building blocks, basic sounds, basic letters, the alphabet, that needs to be learnt in order to be able to speak the language. If sexual intimacy is a language, then those basic building blocks is simple physical touch. On this concept of physical touch, I want to offer you a framework to think about physical touch and sexual intimacy that broadens the depth and experience of your physical intimacy within your relationship. This is something that you can intentionally incorporate with your partner to experience both physical and emotional connection. This concept is the idea of the 5 gears of touch. Gears in the sense, if any of you have ever driven manual before, literally thinking about the different gears of the car. In order to be able to go to 5th gear, you need to be able to move through the other gears in order to establish 5th gear. If you're on the edge of a highway, your car's not in motion, and you want to go at full speed, going from 0 to 5th gear, you're likely to stall. At the same time, I want to establish that each of these gears of touch in and of themselves have validity. They have an element of connection and enjoyment, and it doesn't actually necessarily need to lead to another gear in order for that specific touch to have value in and of itself. At the same time, as a couple, that's where the more you are able to enjoy the different elements, the different gears of touch in your relationship, the more enjoyment you simply bring to that experience of touch and emotional connection within your relationship. So the first gear is affectionate touch. So this is your everyday holding hands, maybe a kiss on the cheek as you say goodbye. It could be a hug when you greet each other at the end of a day. Affectionate touch. The second gear is the idea of sensual touch. So now this is where you're more deliberately touching each other's bodies. There is that element of enjoyment, really connecting in with the touch. So this might be a back rub, a massage, maybe it's a foot rub, maybe it's a snuggling in bed next to each other, full body contact with your hands just, wandering across each other's arms. Maybe it's a hand through the hair, sensual touch. The next gear, third gear, is this idea of playful touch. So this is where things might get a little bit fun, flirty, maybe even humorous. Playful touch might look like maybe you give the other person a little bit of a nibble on their ear, maybe a lick on their neck. Maybe it's that you are dancing with each other. In playful touch, this is where some genital touching might be incorporated, like a cheeky grope in the kitchen. Playful touch. The next gear, fourth gear, this is now considered erotic touch. So the heat, the intimacy, the physical connection is ramping up at fourth gear. So this is where there is more deliberate, enjoyable experiencing of genital touching. It's manual stimulation. It's using fingers. It could just be rubbing up against each other's bodies. But it's that idea that this touch is erotic, and because it has high levels of arousal involved in erotic touch, there may be the eventuation into the experience of orgasm. Fifth gear. This is intercourse. Fifth gear is a natural continuation of all the prior gears before it. And this is where, with intercourse, many people associate that with penis and vagina intercourse. What I will also add, however, is that intercourse may also be digital penetration. It may be oral intercourse. It could even be the use of sex toys that penetrate. So this is where intercourse isn't just necessarily one thing. However, it is important that as a couple, you have a conversation around what fits in with your idea of intercourse. For a lot of couples, what can often occur is that there is an overemphasis on fifth gear, with the absence of a lot of the other types of touching, or a lack of intentionality with those other types of touching, where they really, again, just think about intercourse, but don't necessarily consider how they can incorporate more enjoyment in the other gears. And so what can sometimes happen is that there is a lack of physical intimacy with just that emphasis on sexual intercourse. Or maybe you have gear 1 and a little bit of gear 4, and the focus again is on gear 5. So your challenge as a couple is, how do you incorporate these different types of touch into your relationship, recognizing the validity and the connection that comes with each one of those forms of touch? What I recommend that you do with this idea is think through each gear. Think about, what are all the types of touch, positions, things that you might enjoy in each one of those gears. Then actually have a conversation with each other. What is it that you brainstormed or even wrote down? And what, within the couple relationship and as a sexual team, what forms of touch can you agree on? Can you make a plan of, okay, Friday night, date night. Tonight, we're simply going to focus on playful touch without the idea or the pressure that it needs to lead to anything else. And on that note, that's where I will say, even if things lead to fifth gear, which again, in and of itself, has a lot of validity, has a lot of connection, has a lot of intimacy. But even at fifth gear, you may find that there are moments that you tap into the other types of touch. And that again, continually enriches the experience of fifth gear. For example, maybe there's a moment during sexual intercourse that you hold each other's hands. That's affectionate touch. Maybe there's, again, a cheeky grope of the other person, playful touch. Maybe it's that sensual touch, running your hands over each other's bodies. So you see how, even in fifth gear, there's a benefit from being able to draw from the other gears of touch.